In this week's episode of Studio Inter, we'll be reviewing the crazy dramatic win against Fiorentina. We'll be previewing the game against Victoria Pilsen in the Champions League, as well as Sunday's Serie A game against Sampdoria, and much, much more. Everything here on Studio Inter, only on SempreInter.com.
It's Barella. Barella's in. The game winner. Ball back to the back post. Anuti's in. Oh my goodness! Mkhitaryan continued his run. And it ricochets off of him. In the 95th minute, Inter find the game winner.
Benvenuti, bentornati to another edition of Studio Inter. I'm your host, Nimato Valle Ruzzari, wishing you back to another episode and another week. It's a Monday night when we record these. That sees Inter get off to a very decisive week in the best possible way. At least they enter it in the best possible way after a very dramatic win on Saturday night against Fiorentina. But before we get to all of that, because there is so much to unpack, and we are going to unpack it, let me begin by introducing my panelists. He writes a column on SempreInter.com called 5 Things We Learned from Inter This Week. Mr. Jake Smalley, how are you?
I'm very well, thank you. Yourself?
I'm good. I don't know if you noticed, but one of our listeners tagged us on Twitter with the video of what you said. That I know I've seen it, but I don't know if I can believe it, if I was hallucinating, if all of this...
I'm not a liar. I've told you before.
No, you're not a liar, but I cannot believe what I just saw. They were literally sawing down the posts at St. Andrews. Wow. I'm really looking forward to the frog now. Like, it's just astonishing. And we're also joined by SempreInter.com preview writer, Mr. Positivity, Mohamed Nassar. Mo, lots of things to be positive about, or should we be calm and not be too positive? What's the verdict, the initial verdict?
There's certainly lots of things to be positive about that have happened in the last few weeks. It's a much better place for all Interisti. But like you said earlier in the intro to the show, it is a decisive week. So I think if all goes according to plan on Wednesday night and then subsequently over the weekend, then there can be real cause for proper positivity and just not sentimental positivity for the rest of the season.
I couldn't agree with you more. But before we get to that, we have to discuss what happened on Saturday, because it was a game that is why we are this positive and we are this confident going in, or we're not confident, but we're happy going into this, because that was a very difficult game. Fiorentina away is always a difficult game for Inter, for everyone. But it was a Pazza Inter performance. I've lost track of how many goals Inter are now scoring under Simone Inzaghi late in games. It's Inzaghi time, clearly Inzaghi time, and that is a hallmark of a great team, to score late, to score decisive, winning goals late in games, and Inter just keep doing that under Simone Inzaghi. That's a good thing. But what everyone is talking about, the main talking points are the refereeing decisions, and I thought we'd delve into them, starting to go, we'll go through them one by one and we'll have our say. And I wanted to just start with the Federico Di Marco situation, and I want to start with you, Mo. I want to hear what your thoughts are. We all know that, we all agree it's a penalty, right? But the controversy has been whether or not he should have been sent off or not. And he wasn't shown any card, and I think we all agree that was a scandalous decision. He should have been shown at least a yellow card. But the aftermath with of the sending off, of the lack of sending off. What do you make of the situation? Do you think it was a red card, and what's your thoughts on this circus that's been going on afterwards?
Well, look, I'm not Michael Gallo, so I haven't earned my refereeing credentials just yet. So I speak only as an observer and a fan. Like you said, there's no doubt it was a penalty. In my mind, I didn't for a second think a sending off would have been merited. But again, I'm an Inter fan, clearly biased watching the game. So again, like you said, a yellow card was certainly merited, but it wasn't a scandal for me. I understand you're playing at home. Fiorentina are playing at home in Florence, so but like my Twitter, Instagram, and my Instagram and Twitter, where I've been inundated with pictures of that Danilo D'Ambrosio ridiculous penalty that was never a penalty. It was Maresca, right? Sempre tu, Maresca?
No, that was Abisso. I think that was
Rosario
Abisso.
It was Abisso in the Spalletti era, exactly.
Yeah. Petto. Spallettone.
Spallettone, exactly. Yeah, so again, without going on for too long, I think in my mind, it was never a scandalous decision. It was a clear penalty. It was given. I never thought that a red card was in play. I just, for me, again, as I said, I see things through Nerazzurri glasses. So I feel like in the aftermath, much is always made when decisions go Inter's way, refereeing decisions go Inter's way, rather than when they go against Inter. And I don't know if this is because we're Inter fans, we feel that this is the case. Maybe if we talk to someone a bit more objective, like Patrick Kendrick or Mina or James Horncastle, they can either substantiate or contradict this opinion. But I always feel that this is the case anyway. So I don't know how you guys feel about that.
Jake, I want to hear what you think.
I think it's a bit of an awkward one, if I'm honest. I think the penalty, like Mo just said, it's in no doubt that it's a penalty, but I think the issue that I sort of had with it, I watched it back about half an hour ago before we decided to record, just so I could refresh my memory. And it is quite high where he catches him. And I always try and think sometimes, well, if that happened the other way around, would I want a penalty for it? And would I want a red card? I mean, I'm not someone who's a fan of dishing out red cards, because I think sometimes if there's any contention, don't bother with a red card, because it tends to ruin games. And I don't think there was any malice in the tackle. It wasn't dangerous in his intent. He wasn't trying to hurt him. I think if anything else, he was just trying to block the ball from coming towards him. So I think penalty, 100%. I think a yellow card would have been fair.
Here's the thing for me. I don't think the penalty is crystal clear. I want to talk a little bit about Di Marco as well, because a little later on, because the Bergomi said something really interesting. Giuseppe Bergomi said something really interesting on Club Calcio on Sky Sport last night, which I think really we should discuss that, about how the same goals keep coming in from the left-hand side. But discarding that, yes, Di Marco's late, Di Marco's clumsy, and it's absolutely a yellow card. I wouldn't have had many complaints if they'd given a red card either, but that's exactly it. I think it's a 50-50 between a red or a yellow. I don't think it's clear cut either way. I think you can give yellow or red. I'd be fine with either. My issue is, and I do think that Paolo Valeri, and anyone who's followed me and listened to this podcast, know I am not a fan of Paolo Valeri. I think he's an incredibly incompetent referee, and I think there's more often than not, vastly more often than not, every game he officiates deteriorates into complete chaos, because he doesn't he's completely inconsistent. He makes the most ridiculously silly mistakes, and I just don't think he's a very good referee. But to pick on Mo's point, what you said, the circus, here's the thing, and there's a reason for this. The reason for this is that they do this, and certain parts of the media, and of course the Juventus echo chamber, especially the Juventus echo chamber, do this, and some parts of the Milan echo chamber as well do this. And this is it. In their heads, it's still May 2006. Luciano Moggi is crying on the TV saying that, my life has been ruined. I've been, everything's horrible there. I'm innocent, and I'm being set up, and it's a conspiracy. That's what this is. The agenda started then, and it still goes on to this day. And the agenda is, quite simply, that Inter are just as guilty as everyone else in getting refereeing decisions their way. Juventus were completely stitched up. They were completely innocent. and there's no conspiracy, and if there is, then Inter are just as guilty as Juve. That's the nonsense narrative that they keep pushing and have been pushing for 16 years, going on 17. Discarding, of course, because they know that most people are stupid and won't read and look into the what actually happened, and it has been documented what actually happened. It was They were convicted. They were tried in court. The evidence was laid for everyone to see, and it's been upheld in every single legal in every single appeal since then. That's the agenda. The agenda is to paint Inter with the same brush as them, saying, you know, Juventus were stitched up. All teams get wrong decisions their way, and so they blow every situation out of completely out of proportion. And that leads me nicely to my next point about the Lautaro penalty. Because that is a stonewall penalty, and they do this. What they do is they say, well, you know, they compare it to the Napoli game. Well, why is Rui Patricio, when he touched the ball, then why wasn't a penalty given there? Completely discarding the fact that Rui Patricio blocks the ball, saves the ball bounces and goes out in a 90-degree angle straight out, whilst Lautaro Martinez dribbles the ball or passes the ball past Terracciano. Terracciano's fingers are on the ball. There's no doubt about that. But Lautaro and the ball up going past him, and he brings Lautaro down, and that's why it's a penalty. But this is the agenda that they do, and they have been doing it all the time, non-stop, because in their heads it's still May 2006, because they simply cannot accept and live with the fact that Juventus got convicted in a match-fixing scandal named Calciopoli, and they cannot accept that. They cannot cope with that fact. And so every single time they create these ridiculous, they invent these ridiculous exaggerations and narratives to prove that point. And to me, I just find it incredibly entertaining, because I'm past that. If for those who are interested, you know, it's a public document. You can go and read why the courts found the way they did and what the evidence was. And there's been loads of documentaries done with the police who investigated what happened then and so on. And go and look into that. So I'm not even interested in relitigating that. I'm just providing a context as to what this is really about. Exactly like you said, Mo. This is why it always happens that every single decision that goes Inter's way, whether wrong or right or 50-50, this is the narrative. Always push the narrative, and the narrative is Moggi's innocent, Juventus was stitched up. If Juventus are guilty, everyone is guilty. And of course, reality doesn't, but that's not the reality of the matter. So it is what it is, and it's, I just find it really, really entertaining. But you know, it is what it is. As for the Dzeko and Luka Jovic situations, my thoughts are, and I want to hear what you think, Mo, and you, Jake. My thoughts on those situations are, if you're going to disallow one, you have to disallow the other, because as they say in Italy, they're mezzo fouls, they're half fouls. I'm good either way. Either you disallow both or you don't disallow either one. So I don't think there's a controversy there either. What about you, Mo? Do you agree? Do you disagree?
Yeah, no, I agree completely. Yeah, I mean, that's what refereeing consistency is all about. So yeah. Totally agree with.
Exactly. What about you, Jake? I mean, any thoughts on the Lautaro penalty and the De Vrij being, you know, the Jovic on De Vrij and Dzeko on Milenkovic?
I think it's really interesting that we watch a game of football that takes place at such a really good venue and played in such a high-spirited sort of fashion that it was, and we spend 25 minutes talking about refereeing decisions, and it's, you know, it's always going to be the same. It's what football's always been about to an extent, but it kind of makes me a little bit sad in other ways. I think, you know, we you know, it's the way the sport is it's open to interpretation, and that's where we can have these discussions. But I think it's such a shame we have video assistant referees, we have a referee in the middle, we have two assistants on either touchline, fourth official, and we still spend the majority of our time talking about controversial decisions. I think both of, you know, the Jovic and Dzeko incidents, it goes either way, and if you really in detail finalise it out, it could cost people points. It could, we've just talked about DiMarco incident. Inter go down to 10. They end up going on to lose the game. They end up winning it, sort of quite scrappy at the end. It's all such fine margins, and I think if you really spend so much time going into detail about every single moment that's ever been, it'll just go a bit mad. But I think that's where the Juventus agenda comes from. It's, well, look, we got in trouble. Let's try and drag someone down with us. And I just think it's a little bit sad. I think if we're talking about them in isolation, it's all down to opinion. I think Lautaro's penalty, clear penalty. And I think as far as the other two incidents are concerned, exactly as you said, Neem, I think you can make a case for either side. But I don't want games to be defined totally by refereeing decisions. I think it's just such a shame. It takes the gloss off some of the individual quality that we see quite often, because they just become talking points, and then we watch them over and over again on video assistant. The referee changes his mind. It just takes too much of the centre stage for me at times.
I agree. No, I don't want to talk about the refereeing either, but we have to talk about this because the circus that we've seen about this and the agenda that they're putting together is bizarre. And also what happened after the game in Florence, where Inter are basically telling journalists that Rocco Commisso was throwing a temper tantrum and trying to barge into the dressing room, and Fiorentina vehemently deny it. Inter fan was, as we've seen on social media, assaulted in the stadium after the game. The person who assaulted him has now been banned for 3 years from the stadium. It wasn't a nice game. These are two clubs or two club directors that don't like each other, especially I think after what Commisso said about Inter not paying their wages, which is nonsense. They deferred their wages during COVID like everyone did, including Fiorentina, if I'm not mistaken. So, it is what it is. It's two clubs and two directors that don't like each other. Him demanding an apology from Inter. Inter will, basically told him, yeah, absolutely. When the cows come home, you'll get that apology. Forget about it. And I mean, as far as I'm concerned, that's gone. That's over. But I want to talk about. I do want to talk about the game itself, because it wasn't a very, very thrilling game. But we have to talk about the defensive issue, which I addressed. And I like Federico Di Marco. You all know it. I've wanted him to come to Inter because I think he's got some really interesting qualities. But the defensive deficiencies are there, and especially his positioning. And his height and is not something he can do anything about, and but the fact that he's not good in the air and the fact that he's also his positioning, he's a little bit slow to react, and I think the penalty situation is more a result of him, his poor positioning and his slow reaction. That's and as Bergomi said on Sky, these goals keep coming from Inter's left hand side. That's a problem, and I wonder if it's not time now to maybe try to really integrate Robin Gosens into that left flank moving forward. I want to start with you, Mo. What do you make of that? What do you think?
Yeah, it's true. But I can't reconcile, or in my mind, what kind of player Di Marco is. I think he's probably, he's the anti-Darmian, or maybe even anti-D'Ambrosio, who's like a plain Jane, straight, narrow sort of player that gives you a consistent 6 out of 10 or 6.5 out of 10 performance every single time. Di Marco is all over the place. The game against Barca at the Meazza, he was sensational. There are other games where he scores amazing free kicks and his attacking contributions are amazing, and then other matches where his crossing is horrendous. So I think Di Marco's the sort of player. He's not that young anymore. I mean, he needs to develop into the next stage of his career. So he needs to start having genuine consistency on display. So again, insomma, I think you're right insofar as there needs to be a more permanent solution on the left flank, whether it's Robin Gosens or someone else. I don't know. I mean, clearly the Gosens of Atalanta is the Gosens of Inter this season isn't bad. Is closer to the Gosens of Atalanta than anything that we've seen in black and blue so far. But yeah, I mean, Di Marco is not a player that you can rely on long term or through an entire season to put in shifts week in, week out, or even twice a week in and out at a consistent level. I think he's also an emotional player. He gives his all for Inter because he's an Interista at heart and grew up through the academy. So I think there's that as well. So if we want a stable, consistent performer on the left flank, defensively and offensively, then I would imagine that Di Marco, in his current state, is not the sort of player that we can rely on.
That's a really interesting point. What do you think, Jake?
Right, well, let's sort of start it back to about sort of 12, 18 months ago, probably even a little bit further. I think this left-hand side situation is this club all over. So you have Ivan Perisic, who comes back from a loan because he was sort of thrown out for not being at his best level for Inter for quite a long time. He goes to Bayern Munich, plays really well, comes back, integrates at left wing back. Last season, I don't think it can be argued that he was Inter's best player. You know, I was someone who 2 years earlier would have thrown him out and just got shut to him. When he went to Bayern Munich, I was quite happy. I thought, right, well, we've moved on from him now. He's been a massive miss, but in my mind, I thought the deal last January to bring Robin Gosens in was brilliant planning. And I think it seems as if it's been admitted by the club. They bought him not knowing what sort of player he was going to be like post-injury, and that it was just a really good bargain deal, so they signed him. I don't think the manager's really that interested in him or that fussed about playing him. But I think at the moment, if you're going to compare him and Di Marco, I think you've probably got to start giving Gosens a run in the team. I really don't understand why he doesn't. I really like Di Marco. I think he's brilliant. You know, I think part of the charm comes from that he knows that it's been his dream to play for Inter. He gives it absolutely everything. I think going forward, he's a fantastic asset. Putting balls into the box, set pieces, he's brilliant at that. But as far as being an all-round complete player who's going to play for Inter Milan week in, week out, play Champions League football, he's not quite that good. If he played for Torino, or he played for Sassuolo, or you know, one of the upper sort of mid-table sides, he started every game with one of their key players. I think Robin Gosens as well is at the peak of his career, perhaps at this point. Maybe we don't know if that's true in terms of we don't even really know the impact this injury's had on him because he's not had a run in the team. He's not had a chance to get used to the system. But he's a player who, you know, just over 12 months ago was starring in the European Championships for Germany. He played a brilliant role in Atalanta's Champions League performances. So I just find it really, really bizarre. I think as of now, I think I'd be chucking Gosens in and I'd be giving him a run, but I don't think the manager really believes in that. What I will say, though, is I'm really glad that he stopped playing Di Marco as a third centre-half because that really doesn't work at all.
Yes. No, Federico Di Marco is not a centre back. He shouldn't play as a centre back. He can't jump. His aerial ability is dreadful. He is a wing back. He's got a fantastic left foot. His delivery and his crosses and his set pieces are world class. No. Don't play Di Marco as a left centre back. And I'm glad Inzaghi's realised it. Now, when it comes to, I think it's a good option to have to alternate between the two of them. Because I think depending on the kind of game it is, if it's a game where you'd be defending deep, and you've got space to attack and you won't have a lot of possession, I'd personally prefer to play Robin Gosens. If it's a game where you're going to have a lot of possession and you're going to bomb, you know, you're going to need to overload the flanks and have good deliveries in the box, I'd play Di Marco. So I don't really have a problem either way with it. But I do think that, you know, every player has their weaknesses and their strengths. It doesn't matter who it is, Di Marco, Dumfries, you know, Lautaro, every single player has weaknesses and strengths. Di Marco's weaknesses is his defensive game, his positioning. And that's why I think he has improved on it, but he still needs to improve. He really does. And I think he will. He's still very young. And above all, he loves Inter. He really does. He's an Interista through and through. He's from Milan. Inter haven't had a person from Milan in ages, like from the city of Milan. Biraghi's from Milan as well, but it's not the city of Milan. But yeah, no, I agree with that. I agree with both of you fully. That's the, you know, that was the most for me, the thing that stood out the most. But we have to talk about Nicolo Barella and we have to talk about Lautaro Martinez. I think Lautaro Martinez is the only Inter player who consistently this season has been world class. What I mean by that is, yes, he's had a goal drought, but his overall play during that goal drought was really, really good. Even when he wasn't very good, when he didn't have the best of games, he raised his lowest level, so to speak. And I think consistently in both phases, how hard he works, how much he helps out in defense, the movement and attack. I think and of course the finishing. I mean, that second goal is just world class. He said himself it reminded him of a Milito and Aguero, and it's hard to disagree with that. He was outstanding. Mo, I mean, what do you think about the comparison that he himself made to Milito or Aguero? Which one is it for you? Which one is it closer to?
Yeah, I honestly think he's neither. I think he's both and a bit more. Where we stand or where I stand on Lautaro. I think Lautaro's ability, his technical ability, is better than both Milito and Aguero. I think where he lacks probably is in Milito's scoring, his actual finishing at the end. But Barella, what can we say about Nico? He's been amazing. The guy was having a subpar season last season. The start of the season so far hadn't been very strong, and it was probably a lot due to the exhaustion of playing in the Euros and the COVID season. But the man is possessed, really. Incredible work. Both him and Lautaro, like you said last week, Lautaro's physicality has been much improved. Particularly in that second goal as well, he can't get knocked off the ball anymore, and neither can Barella, scoring while he was almost tripping that goal. So I think both players are clearly a huge reason why Inter are doing so well so far this season. Particularly Barella, when he was having a weak, slow start to the season, Inter weren't doing well. Now that he's on fire, Inter are at their pazza best.
Oh, agreed. Jake, I mean, Lautaro and Barella. Personally, I think Barella. I know he's never scored more goals at Inter since joining Inter. And it's only October, so he could reach double figures, and that would be an outstanding season. But I think in his overall play, I don't even think he's at 60% of his overall potential. Whilst I think Lautaro has never been this good. Would you agree with that, Jake, or what's your thoughts?
I definitely agree. I mentioned a few times when we've recorded about Lautaro this year, I think he's kicked on another gear. I can't work out if it's something to do with the fact that with Lukaku going 12 months earlier, he's maybe looked back at last season and thought, I went through too many sort of goal droughts. I know he's had one this year, but it's as if he's now the main man. And I think at the time where Lukaku came in, he was the main man. It's now seemingly that Lautaro stepped up, and we said a number of times, both me and you, Nima, when we were discussing it last season, whether he had that sort of killer instinct to be a real top quality striker. But it seems as if he's showing that. I think even his goal against Salernitana was proof of that. It was a goal almost out of nowhere. He's managing to win into games through his own performances. Whereas I think at times last year he'd score goals in games that Inter would win comfortably, and he'd score a couple, he'd score a hat trick, and when they needed him, he sort of dropped away a little bit. But he looks like he's really full of confidence this year. I think he looks absolutely fantastic, and I think the World Cup comes at probably the right time for him to showcase his talents and prove himself to be one of the best strikers in the world at the moment. And I think where Barella stands is the sky's the limit. I think he's got absolutely everything. I think if he can have a couple more goals for his game, like you say, but he seems to be, intent on doing that. He's good at creating. He holds things together, and the passion that he plays at, gives you, ultimate indication that he'll go on to fulfill his potential as being a great player. Because he's still a player who he's not even reaching his peak yet. He's got more development to go through. He's come off the back of a couple of really brutal years. The COVID break, Inter playing to the Europa League final. He's then played in the Euro final. He's played the Scudetto winning season. I think it was just a sense of fatigue with him. And, his quality's never been in doubt. I think he can do everything as a midfielder.
It's hard to disagree. He really does have everything to well, he does have everything. I mean, the only thing I guess he doesn't have is his aerial ability. But other than that, I mean, the work rate. But more importantly, I wanted to touch base with you guys as well. I wanted to touch on this with you guys and ask you both what you think. That team meeting that every single one of them keeps talking about before the game, after the game. We had a meeting. We had a face-to-face meeting. We cleared the air. And that happened like a couple of weeks ago. And when they had that, ever since then, I've not seen the negative body language from Barella at all. And I think that's been a good thing. The fact that he's had to change his mental frame, it's been so positive for his game. And that's when he started scoring as well. You don't see the negative body language. You don't see the sighing and the throwing of the arms around and stuff like that. Instead, you actually see a positive body language from Barella. And now you see the goals as well. Which I think is an interesting note. I think the entire team, I mean, yes, we did see against Fiorentina where Çalhanoğlu and Dumfries got angry with, Çalhanoğlu lost it with Correa, which I completely understand for doing something really stupid when he didn't even look at the ball. He didn't meet the ball, just put his head down and ran away instead of clearly meeting the pass, which everyone knew Çalhanoğlu was going to play. And then you had Dumfries, who lost his shit with Mkhitaryan in a situation. I mean, that's fine if that happens once, twice. But with Barella and Brozovic, they did it to every single time. I mean, you could literally set your watch after it. And I think that kind of thing creates negativity in a group. And I think it was important. And again, I want to praise Simone Inzaghi's leadership here, because it's a very modern leadership at this level to kind of have a team meeting, discuss with the players, let everyone say what they think, together make a decision as a team, everyone adapt to it and buy it and move on, instead of this kind of old school, I'm the boss, I decide, I tell you, you're just a stupid footballer, you're going to do as I say. That's not how his leadership is, and it seems to have worked as it's turned around, and it's turned, the results have been, have completely changed, and now Inter are on the precipice of securing a round of 16 spot, a place in the round of 16 in the Champions League, knocking out Barcelona, who spent God knows how much in the summer buying world-class players, which leads me nicely into the preview. Look, it's Viktoria Pilsen. It's Wednesday. I think it's the early kickoff on Wednesday. I'm pretty sure it is. I mean, yes, I know we talk about Inter and we shouldn't. I'm not taking anything out. I'm not counting my chickens before they're hatched. But I seriously, if Inter can't beat Viktoria Pilsen, they don't deserve to be in the round of 16 regardless, right? I mean, we saw when they played Viktoria Pilsen in Prague, in the Czech Republic, they're not a very good side, are they? I mean, Mo, is there any? I mean, if objectively speaking, this is a 2-3-0 win, right?
Yeah, I mean, not wanting to tempt the fates or anything, just because there's so much hanging on this game in terms of season-long implications. But like you say, objectively speaking, this Inter in our current form should beat Viktoria Pilsen easy. I'd go with a 2-0. I mean, actually, not even a 3-0, like you say. I predict a 3-0 just to make sure that there is no sort of nervousness in the last 10 minutes. Own the game from start to finish. Score 2 goals in the first half, and then another goal early in the second half, and then cruise, autopilot for the rest of the game. I hope this is my best case scenario, and I'd like to lock that down as my prediction.
I see that's what I think it should be as well. I mean, I want to see a controlled, cool, calm Inter come into this game, and I think that's what we're going to see. I'm very happy that Romelu Lukaku is complete. I mean, we're recording this on a Monday. He's completed 2 full training sessions with the team. That makes me incredibly happy because I think he has to start this game. This is a game he has to start together with Lautaro. And he doesn't need to play the 90 minutes, but he has to start, and he has to start and get Romelu Lukaku going, because we're going to need him when before the World Cup, when Inter play both Juve and Atalanta away. We need to have him firing on all cylinders, or at least on three or 4 cylinders if possible. But I want to ask you, Jake, and I want to go back to Mo as well. Would you start Lautaro together with Correa or Dzeko, or would you start with Romelu Lukaku? I mean, where are you on that? And also, what's your prediction going into the game?
As far as the game's concerned, it does stink a little bit of PSV, Shakhtar, Slavia Prague game that you think Inter San Siro should win. But given that we've seen Pilsen quite recently and they were rubbish, I'd imagine Inter can take the sting out of this. It's just playing the occasion. They don't need to get too wrapped up in that. I mean, I did say before the game on Saturday, get an early goal, calm it down. That's exactly what happened, yet it turned into an absolute fiasco. So I don't want to tempt fate too much. I think based 11v11, the situation, Inter know it's pretty much in their hands if they win the game. I think they'll be in control of this. And what it really does need, I think, is a performance from Romelu Lukaku, because given that Inter have really upped the performance level the last couple of weeks, to add another weapon to this side, especially in an attacking sense, could really give the players a real lift ahead of going into those massive fixtures, knowing that they're playing well, and they then got Lukaku to come into things. Knowing that the fixture schedule is going to hot up a little bit, and knowing that the World Cup's coming, I wouldn't start him. I think I'd play Dzeko from the start. I don't think Correa deserves to start based off how rubbish he was on Saturday. I think I'd start with Dzeko because Dzeko's played against him and scored against him in the first meeting of the team, so he knows what they're about. And I think I'd give Lukaku maybe half an hour, maybe a little bit longer potentially, if the game's sort of done and dusted by half time.
Interesting. Mo, do you agree? Because I don't know what I would do. I think I would.
Yeah, I'm with you, Nima, in that I don't know. I don't know what's right. I like how Jake is taking a genuine stance there. I don't know what's right. I don't know.
Thing is, I can see both our sides of the argument, because Dzeko obviously,
exactly.
I was confident that I wanted to start Lukaku for all the reasons I said, but when Jake said it, I was like, well, maybe. How about then start Dzeko, and then if it's 2-0 up, then bring Lukaku on at half time?
Exactly, and let him score the third goal.
Exactly, something like that. Yeah, that's what I'm going with, Jake. You convinced me. Yeah, I'm convinced. I'm convinced. I want to. Yeah, Dzeko, Lautaro, and then at halftime bring in Lukaku, or the 50th minute, for which managers everywhere in the world for some reason like making a change around the 50th minute. I don't understand why, but anyway, yeah, I'm with you on that. So then on Sunday, I think, if I'm not mistaken, it will be again at the San Siro. It's nothing more than one giant love fest. It's on Saturday. It's on Saturday at 8:45 p.m. CET, and it's a beloved return. Deki Drago returns to San Siro for in charge of Sampdoria for a game that is going to be an absolute Inter love fest. And Sampdoria won today. Whilst we're recording, they beat Cremonese away, a really important win for them to in the relegation race, which I think they'll be locked in for most of the season. But I mean, let's be honest, they are a dreadful side, and this is if Victoria Pilsen is a comfortable 2-3-0 win, then certainly so is Sampdoria, no? I mean, what do we think, guys? Jake, what about you?
Well, I've just been watching that game, and they were absolutely dreadful. Score a goal out of nothing to steal a win against a team who were just as bad. I think this is where Lukaku comes in, and this is where my method sort of evolved a little bit. I think give him a few minutes in midweek just to make sure that we don't give him 90 and it knackers him out if he's been injured for so long. I think you give him 45 minutes or what have you in the midweek game against Pilsen. I think you start against Sampdoria, beat them 3-4-0, get a couple of goals for Lukaku, because I'm not someone who generally gets sort of overexcited, but from watching Sampdoria, I've seen them a couple of times this year, and they are dreadful. They were quite lucky away at Bologna a couple of weeks ago. They were really poor tonight. And I almost thought that there'd be a bit more fight in them with Deki in charge, but I think they're just that poor and that poorly assembled as a squad that they're really going to struggle for this season. I think it'll be even more straightforward than a win against Salernitana. So I think they'll win 3 or 4-0.
Well, that's an interesting. Yeah, I hope you're right. But I mean, we got to talk a little bit more about Deki coming back to San Siro. I mean, it's going to be emotional for me because I mean, I love that guy. I really did. He was one of my favorite all-time Inter players. Lovely guy too. Met him a couple of times. I really enjoy. I really like him. And what do you think, Mo?
I think a few things. I think first of all, I like Jake's boldness in his predictions, so I can only follow in carrying the banner of positivity. I can't under predict Jake's positivity. Second thing, I'm definitely it's always emotional seeing, particularly the class of 2010, seeing them come back to the San Siro as managers now, whether it was Motta, now Dzeko, now it's Stankovic. So yeah, I mean it's emotional for sure, and it's crazy how old it makes me feel. You said 2006 earlier. It was what, 22 years ago? You said 12 years ago. What the hell did you say? 16 years ago? 2006? It's crazy.
Yeah.
It's absolutely insane how much time flies. But
Yeah.
the last footnote is when we were talking about Inzaghi getting the sack earlier in the season, and people were mentioning potentially Stankovic coming in as manager. And like. There's nothing I'm against more than destroying all these like club legends, whether it's Lampard at Chelsea or Seedorf at Inzaghi at Milan. It would have been so unfair. So I'm just glad that he's coming in as a manager for Sampdoria. Not happy for him because the team's awful, but rather than him coming at the bench for the Nerazzurri. So these are my three talking points.
For sure. No, I'm with Jake as well. I think easy 3-0, 4-0, 4-1 win, a comfortable win. I want to start. I don't like that Inter have conceded so many goals. So I want to see 2 clean sheets in the Champions League and in the Serie A. Hopefully to build a little bit of confidence. So yeah, right. Let's move on to the part of the show where we pay tribute, rip the piss out of, and criticize someone or something heavily in the world of football. Starting with the positivity, this week's Moratti, which we present by Mr. Mohammed.
He works a lot, he's intelligent, and he surprises people sometimes with his ideas. Not easy to find one person all these qualities.
Yeah, it's got to be Nicolo Barella. We've spoken about his transformation in attitude and output. We've spoken about his goal-scoring contributions this season. His assists have been insane. So, for me, there can be no one but Nicolo Barella as this week's Moratti after that crazy performance against Fiorentina this week.
For me, it's Lautaro Martinez for saying that he wants to be a bandiera, that he's happy at Inter, that he keeps saying how much he loves Inter, that he wants to stay at Inter, and he hopes to be a bandiera at the club, he said. That, to me, that makes me really happy because that he didn't need to say these things. And the fact that he does tells me that he wants to stay. And that makes me really happy. It puts Inter in a good position should they sell him, even if somebody were to come calling. I mean, it means they would have to pay an obscene amount of money, which I which is good for Inter. Right, let's move on to something much more comical. This week's Frog, which will be presented by Mr. Jake Small.
È clamoroso! Autogol di Ranocchia!
Now, I feel as if I've got a bit of a bar to sort of aim for with these each week now. It's getting a little bit hard to keep hitting.
But it's only your fault. It's your own fault because you find you're so good at these.
Well, I find often when we do these, it's sort of a bit of a collection of world football as a whole where I sort of find these stories from. But this one's a little bit close to home this week. So I wanted to start with Maurizio Sarri's week this week. And as an English-based football supporter, when Maurizio Sarri came over to England, I thought it was going to be a bit of a raw deal. And I am a bit of a football hipster, I will admit that. And I love his story. I think it's absolutely fantastic. I think sometimes he's maybe done a few controversial things, which I maybe don't agree with too much. But I think in terms of earning his stripes and being able to coach at the level he has, is absolutely fantastic. So when he was asked this week by a journalist how he would define his style of play, so sorry ball, he said the best person to ask was his wife, who would most likely reply by calling him either a grumpy man or a bit of a dickhead. So I think that absolutely encapsulates everything that Sorry is all about. In a world of modern football, where we have these coaches wearing Stone Island jumpers and jeans on the touchline, we've got a smoking Tuscan whose wife thinks he's a dickhead.
The thing is, I'm so glad you said, because I really want to give some love to Sarri, because I think he was so disrespected at Juve and Chelsea. I honestly think that what he's done at Lazio is something I never thought he was capable of. Pragmatism and building a team there with very limited resources and obviously players that not necessarily suit his style of football.
Completely changing identity of the manager that was in before him with such a limited budget deserves I think a 3 at the back formation to move to something that he's more comfortable with. I think he's done a fantastic job.
I really think so as well, and I think for me above all, it's the balance. He's got them playing he's got the team so well balanced. I think Provedel against Atalanta, I don't know if people saw that. He didn't have to score. I mean, he barely had to make a save to keep his 6th consecutive clean sheet. They've only conceded 5 goals. They've got the best goal difference in the Serie A, and I think and Romagnoli's been a fantastic signing, and that's another thing, because Romagnoli's not very quick. He's not the most pacey player, and Sarri likes to play with a higher defensive line, likes to have quick defenders. He doesn't really have that in Romagnoli, but what he's done is he's found the right balance, which makes Lazio so difficult to break down. And to be honest, I mean, Inter's defeat against Lazio away, I think lots of teams are going to struggle against Lazio away. I mean, Napoli, of course, beat them, but Napoli look like genuine, one of the best teams in Europe right now. So, we saw what they did to Liverpool and Ajax home and away, and et cetera, et cetera. We saw what they did to Roma, who were defending really deep yesterday. So, no, and I'm really happy for Sarri. I really, really am. I think he deserves it. I think he was so disrespected and poorly treated, and I like his football, and I like the fact that, for me, when a manager shows that he can, without completely selling out his beliefs, show pragmatism, but within his system, and get the best out of the squad he's got available, at his disposal. That to me is the hallmark of a great manager. And I wonder if Sarri isn't with this Lazio, if he continues and has a good season with this Lazio. I wonder if he's not throwing his hat in the ring again for another top job, an Inter after Inzaghi, or a Milan after Pioli, or even maybe the Italian national team. I really wouldn't put it like I really wouldn't discard. I wouldn't exclude it. I really wouldn't exclude it. I wouldn't discard the possibilities. I'll put it that way. Right. Let's move on to something much more negative. This week's Moggi, which I'll be presenting myself. So this morning, I woke up and I saw clips from yesterday's, on Sundays in Italy, they have these football shows and debate shows. And I saw a clip from Mario Sconcerti, who's a legendary Italian football journalist. I don't know how old he is. I think he's he's north of 70. And he's a bit of an institution in Italian football. He was born in 1948, so that's 52 plus 16. That's 52 plus 22. So that makes him 74. He is getting on a bit, and some of the stuff he's saying. I mean, just in the last few weeks alone, he referred to Erling Haaland as being someone with Down syndrome on national TV, as a joke. In the past, he's referred to Gianluca Di Marzio as being a fag on TV, quote unquote. And then this morning, I wake up and I see what he said yesterday about following the Fiorentina Inter game, where and all of these things he said as a joke, and then he apologized for both of them. And then I wake up to see what he said this morning about the Inter game and the incident where an Inter fan was assaulted, which was going to be the Moggi of the week and is the Moggi of the week too. But this is just, but with his comments, he says that he basically goes on a bit of a rant and says that it's the fans were frustrated after a horrible decision where Inter should have been down to 10 men and they lost because of that. And there are mitigating factors in this country, referring to Italy. It was a mitigating factor if a woman cheated on you and you killed her. It was a mitigating factor that she cheated on you. I mean, really, enough. I have so much respect for the older generation. I have so much respect for these journalists that were trailblazers. But now, guys, it's time to retire. And more than him, because this has been an ongoing thing with Sconcerti time and time again, more than him, I actually think the people who keep putting him on TV are irresponsible, because it's not, it's almost bordering elderly abuse now to put an old man in a position where he shouldn't really be in, that he's no longer in possession of his full capabilities, mentally speaking, and he says the most outrageously stupid things just as a joke time and time again. Like, I get that times change and whatnot, but it's not just one time, it's continuously with him. And so, it's this week's Moggi has to go to Mario Sconcerti, the people who keep putting him on TV, and also, of course, the idiot who assaulted another fan in the stadium after the result, because this is just, come on. It's 2022, soon 2023. Move on, people. Right. That's all we had time for this week. I'd like to thank you, Mo, for coming on.
Thank you very much. Lovely episode, and can't wait to see another 6 points, baby.
From your mouth to God's ears. Mr. Jake Smalley, always a pleasure.
Yeah, thank you as always. I think this week's such a crucial week. I'm really looking forward to sort of meeting up this time next week and discussing, hopefully, into having one foot in a Champions League knockout round and having battered Sampdoria, like I said, on Sunday, so I'm proven correct.
Absolutely. I hope you are correct. And until next week, I'm your host, Nima Tavalli, wishing you a good week. Stay safe, stay healthy, take care of each other. 6 points, and sempre e solo forza Inter.